you'll have amateur competitors, maybe even professional competitors who want to have realistic expectations. So they might ask, like, how long is this going to take? How much muscle can I build? And they're looking for something objective to generate that buy-in. But realistically, I have seen so many cases where, like, yes, individuals, they'll, in bikini at least, they'll try to stay stage lean, or they'll stay very close to it. They'll put a compound in place and seemingly make really good progress. And I guess I'm wondering, like, do you see that as a reoccurring problem within the figure division, or even like the wellness division, seeing that like there almost is this misunderstanding around like how quickly girls can put on size, I guess, with or without enhancements?
Right. Yeah, I've seen I've seen Manon, gosh, I forget her last name. She competed in a pro figure last year, and she's kind of made some switches. I forget her last. She's a Canadian. She put on like 20 pounds of muscle in 1 year. So you do get freaks like that that people see and are like, well, I can do that too. But realistically, for a female, you know, on compounds as well, eating, training, you might put on a pound or two, maybe, of muscle, you know, 3, 4 if you're really, on top of everything. But without compounds and you're still optimizing it, it might be less, a pound or two, but it's still possible. Um, but I do think maybe in every division, not just figure, not just females, on the men's side as well, you take a year off season, everyone expects you to put on like 10 pounds of muscle. Like my husband is just taking an off season and he's coming into prep and he's definitely improved, but the general audience is probably going to like expected him to have put on like 30 pounds when it's like that's just not possible. There's so many things that go into like an off season. Say you go for a year, you have to have a health phase, right? He did a gut health protocol, so like a long gut health thing where he couldn't really push food, training. So, he really had a limited amount of time to grow. If you look at that year-long stretch, it was maybe only like 6 months of proper growth. So I think there is an expectation that you take a year off, that athlete has spent that whole year, growing, when realistically, there's health phases, recovery phases, etc. Um, and especially for females, it can be a little bit harder just because, you're not willing to risk that crazy PED usage. So I think you're right that there is probably an expectation that is a little too high. And because realistically, I think a pound or two is probably more realistic for females, maybe 5, 6 for males.
Yeah, no, I think even like quantifying it can be so tricky. And I've done videos on like recomping and like, can you lose fat and gain muscle at the same time? And I did this really annoying video. Like I did it to be annoying, to be like, hey, like here's what you would have to do to like essentially lose body fat every day. And like it kind of goes with the same conversation around like building, is like, if you were only gaining muscle, like how much would you be sacrificing in terms of potential strength performance if you're always like teetering deficit, maintenance, surplus? And like
Mm.
realistically, in between your sessions that are driving that adaptation, if you're not fueling yourself in a way that allows you to build new tissue, then it's like, how much of that time off was actually productive? And that's where within the bikini space, I think, there's this attribution that like, okay, there's less muscle. So like, you really shouldn't swing as far in the other direction from your stage weight. And it kills me to hear these numbers thrown out like, oh, you should stay within 10 pounds of your stage weight. Like, I'm 10 pounds right now and I'm like, I'm not anywhere like as lean as I need to be, but like any leaner and I'm probably not going to be productive in my sessions in the gym. And
Yeah, that's a good point. Sorry to interrupt, but
no, no, go,
my
yeah.
husband I'm not calling anybody out, but my husband has a client, a female client who spent her entire off season like 8 pounds up from stage weight. And how much realistically do you think she was able to improve with 8 pounds over stage weight, body composition the entire year? She was very lean the entire year, but was she able to grow? I don't know. There's a certain point where maybe you tip the scales too much, you've gone too much and you put on too much body fat, and now return your return is diminished. But I think it can be said the same thing. You stay too lean and you don't put on enough overall tissue to really improve.
No, and
My
I
husband's grabbing his computer.
No, and I love that it's not so black and white and binary in the sense of like, oh, here's the range in which you should work within. And I think the same thing applies to body fat too. Oftentimes I get athletes who are like, what is the body fat I need to be on stage? Or what's the body fat that like makes me optimal in my growth phase or in my build? And it's like, realistically, like we can assign a number to it, as inaccurate as they probably are, but where I like to guide people or lead them to is like we should be seeing fatigue being managed very adequately. We should see, nutrient partitioning again being managed in a way that doesn't require a ton of cardio to not accrue body fat quickly. But you're training, like, if you're not seeing markers in performance go up, or you're consistently like, I think it's good to feel a little fucked up from your training. And that was very much something in my builds. I'm like, if I didn't earn those days off in between like my lower sessions, I'm like, okay, that's a mental note. Next week, I probably need to send it a little bit harder, because like I would almost strive, be like, I want to feel like a little cognitively fucked up the next day.
Yeah.
And I feel like largely like people, and I get like where it comes from. I love the lean physique. I wouldn't do this sport if I didn't. But I think that's part of the commitment that you're making, even PEDs aside, is like when you're trying to put on a lot of tissue, when you're trying to build this landscape, is like you're committing to a period that's uncomfortable in a completely different way than contest prep.
Yeah. And it's so nuanced from athlete to athlete. So what may be a good composition or a good, nutrition amount, like for one athlete, is going to be different for another. Specifically, like I remember Sydney Gillen in an interview saying that she walks around all year with like visible abs and glute ham tie-in, and it's like I don't get that until like 6 weeks out, 4 weeks. So it's going to be different for everyone. Obviously she was at a point where they were asking her not really to grow anymore, so she was more maintaining. But it's going to be so nuanced from athlete to athlete. So what may work for me might not be optimal for someone else. Like, I tend to, I think, have a little bit more body fat than the average. I'm a little more chunky in my off season, but I do tend to carry it pretty well, like distributed evenly.
That's where your leverage is the best.
My husband was saying that my leverages in my off season setting are a little bit better with a little bit more body fat. Maybe that's me making it an excuse. I don't know, but I tend to do a lot
You look
better.
incredible, by the way. Like, so people might, I know I'm hard on myself my off season, but girl, like you are curvy, but you are fit. Like, and you have so much muscle. Like, also, I'm sorry, this is intrusive. What is your walking around weight in your off season?
I got up to like 166. I'm currently like 159. I'm started prep, so we're coming down.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, I'm at like I wanted to get to 170 so bad, but I couldn't quite cross that barrier this off season. But so next time, but yeah, well, I'm 5'2", 166, 5'2".
That's impressive. Like, I mean, that's so impressive. And no, I completely agree. Like, you carry your weight extremely well. It's very evenly distributed, which is another aspect, I think, like, across all divisions, is like sometimes people, I think, misattribute, like, okay, well, like my abs come in quick or my arms come in quick, not realizing that it's like, okay, but whatever that stubborn part is for you, we need the other things. Like, it's great if they're in, but if they're
They're just
so
gonna get
in,
smaller. They're
right,
just
if
gonna
they're
get
in
smaller.
like 8 weeks before the glute
Yeah.
tie-ins, and that's very much the case. I'm the same way. It's like, like I'm not seeing, I still very much have like softness, dimpling, cellulite around those lower glutes, upper thighs area. Pretty much the entire prep. Like, I wear a tank top, people are like, oh, you're ready. I'm like, this is deceiving. Like, I promise. Like, there's all the fats down there. But
Yeah.
truly, like, I think that's been something I've been able to see in concurrent builds is right now my abs aren't peeled, but that's something that like in the past I've been like bummed about and been like, oh, that's, a negative in this prep. Whereas realistically now I'm like, that's a sign that body fat is more evenly distributed. So that's actually like,
It is a good thing. Yeah.
yeah,
'Cause
like
then
it's
everything is
earned.
gonna come in kind of at once. And like you were saying, things aren't gonna have to shrink disproportionately in order to accommodate that lagging body part. So I guess I can be thankful that I'm just like overall a little bit chunky and not particularly. I'm definitely a bit leaner now than I was my very first like off season. I think as you gain more muscle, your body just kind of naturally sits a bit leaner because it obviously burns a lot more calories to maintain the additional muscle. So I think as I continue, every year after year, I'll probably be able to hold like a bit of a leaner composition in my off season, but I'm not gonna particularly like try to be leaner unless it is beneficial.